Hey everyone, my name is Rooster, and welcome back to Mechabellum. I've got a very short video for you guys today, but I think that even in this short battle, there is a lot to learn. And it is up against none other than Math is Might, currently ranked #1 in the world. So yeah, I mean, a good example, I would say. We have Arclight Steel Ball here as our starter, and my opponent goes for Sledgehammers, with both of us kind of going for a long-range fight. Arclights are very, very popular right now. Probably the chaff clear unit of choice for long-range battles, and so I was expecting to get into a long-range fight that would likely be somewhat mirrored unless Math is Might decided to go for something like Vulcan, but otherwise I expected both of us to go into Arclights. Now, right off the bat, we have buildings here heavily stacked on the right side with the magnetic barricade slowing down enemy units and the anti-armor cannon, the Chungus, right behind. Kind of hard to push into, especially when you're playing standard. It takes a really long time to get through to this tower. So both of us are going to end up stacking on the left side of the field. And I think this is already a very important thing that, you can try out in your own games when you're expecting someone to also play a long-range fight, is try and stack on a side of the field where it's a bit easier for you to get pressure, right? Neither of us really can get a lot done here and get meaningful tower timings, most likely. So both of us are going to try and get some advantages here on the left side. Steel balls all the way in the back, crawlers on the outside of it because I don't want it to get pulled or at least instantly killed here by anything on the flank. And also it opens up things like kinetic charge down the line. Opponent goes for double marksman here. Should be favored. Steel balls are not fantastic into sledgehammers this early on. I mean, in general, they will struggle throughout the game. And, well, marksmen are just very solid DPS here compared to my rather volatile steel balls. I do have the arc lights, so the chaff clear is not horrible, but the late fangs kind of arrive at an awkward timing, and that means that I won't be able to win the first round. So on round 2 here, the things I'm looking for is probably just getting some marksmen of my own, or I can get some different type of long-range DPS in the form of Stormcallers, which are very, very common in long-range fights. So that's what we're going to do. I'm a supply specialist, by the way, hence, my low hit points that I started with. But it does allow me to go for the double Stormcaller here. Now, in the cards, there wasn't anything too interesting for a long-range fight, apart from Smart Marksman, which I kind of expected my opponent to pick up. But, they already started with Marksman. I didn't, and I wasn't really too keen on trying to go for a mirror here. So instead, I was going to likely try to play towards Arclights, Stormcallers, build my chaff, and then play for either Sandworm or something like a Mountain in the long term if the Marksman really become an issue. Double Stormcaller is what we're going to go for, and that should immediately give us a really nice advantage. Opponent goes for triple Arclight, as they didn't really have the money to go for Vulcan, and it seems like Math is Might didn't want to wait too long to get his chaff clear going. And yeah, I mean, the Stormcallers can just immediately hit all of the important units on the enemy field. The Fangs behind the tower, well, they did well, and they are going to be very useful down the line. Without any crawlers to distract these Stormcallers, this round will be ours, and it's going to be a decent, amount of damage here with an Arclight and 2 Stormcallers surviving. We fight back, and we nearly equalize the score. Now we enter round number 3. At this point, I'm pretty happy with everything I have. The only thing I'm missing here is anti-air for the time being, but lo and behold, we have unit drops on round number 3 with double Wasp in there. I was expecting my opponent to pick this. He already has triple Fang. So, I didn't really like my odds that much. However, I thought to myself, there is a chance that my opponent plays the Wasps symmetrically here. One on the right, one on the left. And if that is the case, I can get a bit of an advantage by putting both of my Wasps on the same side of the field, trying to overwhelm the Wasp that is over here. Now you can see that Math is Might was kind of considering the same move, but he ends up putting this Wasp over here. And I just go for triple chaff. It's one of the things I was still missing. I have my 3 crawlers. That's nice, but I'm looking for a little bit more, 6 or 7 chaff deployments is typically what I would want to have. So here I'm going to add triple Fang, 2 stacks on that right side of the field. There's no Arclight there to catch them, and they'll be able to deal with this wasp flank, or, well, this wasp attack rather, by themselves. And it means that I get the benefit of having the double wasp pack here to help out. Of course, I also have this late fang pack arriving, but this gives us a good advantage, and still the Stormcallers are able to do a lot. We do get the classic mobile beacon crawler for Math's Might, but Stormcallers in Stormcaller fashion still very, very good in these type of long range matches for a good reason. And so by stacking and by kind of predicting correctly here that this wasp might attack on the opposite side, we get a very nice lead. I mean, already 2,500 hit points remaining. And this is the crucial round of the game that I want to talk about. Round number 4, we get Efficient Light Manufacturing. Now, this card can be very powerful. It's, you know, a similar type of card like Super Supply, which also can show up first on round 4 and often is an instant pick. The thing is, these type of cards do come with a bit of a downside, which is that you're going to be behind in resources for the next, you know, 2 to 3 rounds. And being behind 200, 300 resources on round 4 is a big investment. So I thought to myself, realistically, my opponent is going to have to make up 350 resources if they want this card to pay off. I'm going to pause slightly because otherwise I think the round will go too quickly. But they're going to have to buy 7 small units, not giants, for that card to pay off. 8 if they want a profit. That is a lot, right? That forces you to buy 3 units this turn, the next turn, and the one after, and all of them to be small units. Now, at this stage of the game, I'm already pretty happy with my board. I'm probably going to buy, you know, a few small units here on round 4, but starting round 5 and 6, I can start thinking about building giants. Things like sandworms, things like, you know, even a mountain. And those units require large units as well to counter, which means that, you know, my opponent, if they decide to pick Efficient Light, aren't going to get a ton of value from that card. And so it's going to take longer for them to pay back essentially kind of the upfront cost that they paid for the long-term potential benefit of the card. Considering my opponent was already down on low hit points, I thought to myself, well, I'm not really interested in Efficient Light. I feel like I've already got most of my small units on the board here. And really, aside from buying these triple arc lights, I'm likely going to be looking to go for bigger units very soon. And because I skipped the card, I have a lot of extra resources left, which allow me to get into double attack enhancement, as well as the first defense enhancement. My opponent doesn't have any of those quite yet, and because we're in a mirror, well, being able to elite recruit arc lights, having those arc lights have, you know, all those bonus stats, both in attack and defense, makes a massive difference. And so, as you can see here, the arc lights are just going to end up completely crushing the opposing side. My opponent, who is a Typhoon spec, gets their power spike turn, but doesn't really amount to much. The arc lights here are completely crushing, and even though there are some marksmen on the board, they're not really able to deal with, you know, all of the units on my side of the field. So again, a good round. A couple of wasps here do survive, but the right side won convincingly, and I still have some fangs to catch that one wasp. And again, the damage, it starts stacking, right? 2 Stormcallers, 4 arc lights, and that's 1,000 damage as we enter round number 5, and now math is down to 1,500. We do get an early unit reinforcement here, which honestly kind of helps me because it allows me to go for, you know, a big threat, potentially, by selling the unit or by kind of building off of it here. Sabertooth is worth the most, alongside the Scorpion. Scorpion worth 450 at level 2, Sabertooth worth 400, but, you know, the cost of the drops even out the eventual profit that you would get from selling them. I decided to go for the Saber, mainly because Saber here beats all of the other things. At level 3, it will easily beat the Farseer, the Vulcan, and it should also beat the Scorpion in this scenario. So I'm happy to pick it up, and I am going to leave it on the field just because it gives a lot of tempo. And, well, at this point, I'm just kind of waiting a little bit because I wanted to see what my opponent went for. I have the luxury of being able to do so since my opponent is the one that has to solve some issues right now. So I can wait a little bit. I am going to go for the steel ball levels, which are available. I'm going to click kinetic charge because it's a really low investment tech. And even if it does get countered, that doesn't end up doing too much. I won't really feel it. It might end up doing something as it gains range, moving, you know, down the path. Right side, Sabertooth, I thought maybe there would be a right side attack of some kind, but instead we have Raidens, which is not a very common unit in Standard. Now, it makes some sense. It's not terrible against things like Arclights, and it is good against Steel Ball, so on a round where I decide to go for Kinetic Charge, perhaps kind of nice. Also helps out taking this barrier, which I purchased because I thought maybe he's going to go for a Vulcan plus a oil play. But what you'll see is that, once again, my Arclights are just crushing his Chaff Clear. And because I went double defense enhancement this round, and my opponent only managed to get the first defense enhancement going, we are completely overwhelming the ground. And whilst I don't have a lot of anti-air, I have some fangs, and, well, they'll sit behind the rest of my units as long as I still have some. Just look at how long it takes, right, for these steel balls to die. Of course, that was double tower take with the debuff, but the fangs are going to be enough to kill those Raidens, and in fact, I'm just going to have enough damage to win on round 5. So again, a very, very quick round here, but some pretty interesting I think, concepts in terms of playing, you know, a similar type of matchup, both of us being long range, both of us realizing, okay, getting pressure down the right side is not going to really work that well. Maybe let's stack on the left. And then from there on, right, Stormcaller, yes, of course, very powerful. Stacking the Wasps, kind of the same concept as on round 1 to try and overwhelm, whilst still kind of trying to catch, right, whatever my opponent might try and attempt on that right side. And then importantly, getting ahead in a mirror, which is often going to be about having more of a unit, having more levels or more techs. In this case, both of us have range. The numbers are somewhat equal, although I end up with slightly more Arclights, but mainly I have more levels, and something that kind of, you know, replicates levels is bonus stats. Double attack enhancement, double defense enhancement on the tower here against practically no buffs at all. Makes a massive difference, right? So you just will end up crushing the ground, and you can kind of just, you know, say that, well, playing for econ is very possible, but it doesn't necessarily, you know, always guarantee a win if your opponent manages to use that money early on to get some leads going. Now, of course, this round is winnable for Mathis Might, but it's not trivial, as you would have to go for, you know, some type of commitment here. That's kind of the whole thing. That's kind of the thing that I'm buying myself, right? I'm buying myself the luxury of having my opponent needing to commit first, whilst I didn't really do too much. I bought Arclights, and those are going to be useful basically for the whole game, and then I can always buy whatever I want later. I'm going to go for the Saber here. I probably should have unlocked the Scorpion, to be honest, because there is a slight benefit to having the unlock cost of that built into the price, in case I would need it later on. And honestly, I think that the best thing to go for here would be something like Hackers. One, it makes use of the efficient light manufacturing. And two, it is not at all a bad unit into things like Arclights and Steel Balls. And honestly, most of these drops as well. It's not terrible into Vulcan, Saber, Scorpion. Farseer can be a little bit tricky because it does have a lot of range, but it's honestly quite doable here. So let's go for that. Let's make sure that we get the temp range, and then maybe level up that Arclight, and then call it a day, really. I'm going to try and, like, well, deal with these Arclights with these two Hackers, and then left side we also have a Hacker here. This might end up locking onto that Saber. Granted, it is very tanky. 67,000 hit points. It will take a while for this Hacker to take it over, but let's see if it can do the trick. I did click temp range myself on that final round, by the way. I loaned because I realized that, hey, maybe I'll be able to take over some units. Will we be able to? Yes, we will. The Sabertooth there does manage to take or get taken over. The Arclight, though, not so much, but at the very least, the left side is going to get stalled for a good amount of time. Right side breaks through. Finally, the Hackers over there are going to take over some Arclights. It looks like I will end up managing to win that round. So you can win this, but, you know, it requires a certain amount of commitment. And from this commitment onwards, well, now I know that my opponent is in hackers. So I can try to go for, buy barriers every round from now on. Go for something like a Titan or, a heavy air commitment. Whatever it is really, I only need to deal 1500 damage to my opponent at this stage, which I should be able to do, considering all the resources. Like, it's not as if this board can't ever beat hackers. I just have chaff clear, and everything else really is either chaff or, sellable and can be transitioned into a different type of carry. Anyway, that's enough from me. I hope that this is somewhat informative. If you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought about it and whether this is stuff that, you've wondered about in the past. If you want to stay up to date with my latest content, please consider subscribing. And if you want to see me play live, check me out on Twitch. With that being said, take care, guys, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.